Did you notice the reactions of people around Donald Trump lately? From distorted expressions to people covering their noses, there's growing speculation about the former president's odor. Some call it exaggerated gossip, while others say it's a long-kept secret that is finally leaking out. But could something as personal as body odor actually affect politics? Let's take a closer look. Donald Trump's alleged odor problem. Did you notice the reactions of people around Donald Trump lately? From distorted expressions to people covering their noses, there's growing speculation about the former president's odor. One man shook Trump's hand only to quickly pull away with a pained look, while others nearby seemed visibly uncomfortable when Trump adjusted his clothes, as if a smell had suddenly spread through the room. Even Melania appeared to keep her distance. At the Pennsylvania Energy and Innovation Conference, businessman Nick McCormick was caught on camera covering his nose while seated next to Trump, and Ruth Porat from Google kept blinking and shifting uncomfortably, clearly struggling to hide her reaction. This isn't the first time rumors about Trump's hygiene have made the rounds. Years ago, diners at a Manhattan steakhouse allegedly complained so much about his smell that he was asked to leave. During a golf outing, photos went viral of yellow stains on his pants. Former staff from The Apprentice even claimed Trump wore adult diapers and sometimes had to be cleaned up off camera, with Keith Schiller reportedly nicknamed wet wipes for that very reason.
The evidence is overwhelming, almost beyond any doubt, that the man smells like shit.
Comedian Kathy Griffin once described his odor as a mix of body smell, scented makeup, and heavy hair products that lingered even outdoors. More recently, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger described Trump's odor in the most unflattering way possible, comparing it to armpits, ketchup, and a butt thrown into a blender.
So take like armpits, ketchup, like a butt, and kind of put it in a blender, and makeup.
He later tweeted that he was surprised more people close to Trump hadn't mentioned it publicly, calling it something to behold. Trump's campaign fired back with insults, but the very fact they responded only gave the story more attention. Meanwhile, concerns about Trump's health have surfaced after cameras spotted him with makeup covering what looked like a bruise on his hand, along with footage showing swollen ankles. The White House physician later confirmed that Trump has chronic venous insufficiency, a common condition in older, overweight men, and explained the bruising as minor irritation from handshakes and aspirin use. Officially, the statement assured everyone that Trump remains in excellent health. Still, when these medical details mix with long-standing rumors about diapers and odor, the speculation only grows louder. For most politicians, allegations of smelling bad or needing diapers would be devastating. But Trump is no ordinary candidate. His supporters treat him with a devotion more often seen in cults than in politics. At rallies, some have gone so far as to say that if Jesus himself were a voter, he would choose Trump. Others have admitted they couldn't imagine living in America if Trump lost again. This loyalty runs so deep that for many in the MAGA base, no scandal, no rumor, and no embarrassing personal detail is enough to shake their support. That leaves the question, does any of this matter? For hardcore followers, the answer is no. They dismiss everything negative as fake news. But for independents and swing voters, the accumulation of these stories may contribute to a growing sense that Trump is surrounded by chaos, drama, and now even an unpleasant smell. Whether true or exaggerated, the idea of Diaper Don has seeped into the political conversation and shows no signs of going away. Joe Biden's hair-sniffing moments. One of the strangest quirks linked to US President Joe Biden is his well-documented habit of leaning in just a little too close. Over the years, countless photos and videos have shown him sniffing women's and even children's hair, often while placing his hands on their shoulders. The clips spread like wildfire online, turning into memes, parody videos, and late-night comedy sketches. For some people, it came across as harmless, just an old-fashioned politician trying to be affectionate in a slightly awkward way. But for others, it crossed a line, sparking debates about whether it was simply an odd personal quirk or something far creepier. Critics argued that the behavior showed a disregard for personal space, especially when it involved young girls. Biden eventually addressed the controversy, promising to be more mindful of personal space and adjusting his public interactions. Still, the internet never forgets. the images and videos continue to circulate, ensuring that Biden's sniffing hair remains one of the most bizarre and talked about political memes of our time. Boris Johnson's messy hair and disheveled style. When it comes to world leaders, most are known for their polished image, sleek suits, carefully combed hair, and the kind of grooming that projects authority. Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, broke that mold completely. His unkempt blonde mop of hair became his trademark, often sticking up in all directions as if he had just been caught in a wind tunnel. Whether he was meeting foreign dignitaries, addressing Parliament, or standing in front of cameras at global summits, Johnson often looked like he had rolled straight out of bed and into the spotlight. This wasn't just a one-off accident. His disheveled look was so consistent that many began to wonder if it was intentional. Some analysts suggested the messy hair was part of his everyman persona, a way of making him appear less like a polished politician and more like a relatable, bumbling character. Supporters often found it endearing, while critics argued it made him look unserious and unfit for high office. The contrast was especially striking at major international events. While other world leaders presented themselves with crisp suits and dignified appearances, Boris stood out like a cartoon character who wandered into the wrong meeting. Photographers often captured him struggling with his hair in the wind or straightening his tie in awkward moments, and those images quickly became memes. Love him or hate him, Boris Johnson proved that a world leader doesn't always need a polished look to capture attention. In fact, his messy appearance became one of his most recognizable trademarks, so much so that even impersonators and comedians only needed to don a wild blonde wig to instantly evoke his character. It's a reminder that sometimes, even in politics, style, or the lack of it, can be just as memorable as substance. Richard Nixon's cold sweat debate. The first ever televised presidential debate in 1960 didn't just change politics, it changed how candidates prepared to face the public forever. On one side stood John F. Kennedy, young, charismatic, and camera-ready. On the other was Vice President Richard Nixon, who had recently been hospitalized for a knee injury and was still recovering. Unfortunately for Nixon, television was unforgiving. When the cameras switched on, Kennedy appeared confident and composed, tanned, rested, and wearing a crisp dark suit that stood out against the studio backdrop. Nixon, on the other hand, looked pale and tired. He had refused makeup, thinking it unnecessary, and to make matters worse, his light grey suit blended into the background. Under the hot studio lights, sweat began to bead on his forehead, and his 5 o'clock shadow gave him a haggard, almost haunted look. Viewers watching on TV couldn't help but notice the stark contrast. Kennedy looked like a natural leader. Nixon looked nervous and unhealthy. Interestingly, radio listeners who only heard the debate often thought Nixon had performed well, even edging out Kennedy in some areas. But on television, image mattered more than words, and Kennedy clearly won in the eyes of millions. Historians still debate how much the debate swayed the election, but many argue it was a turning point. Kennedy's polished performance gave him the momentum he needed, while Nixon's sweaty, uncomfortable appearance reinforced doubts about his likability. The cold sweat debate became a political cautionary tale, proof that in the age of television, appearance and presentation could be just as important as policy. Angela Merkel's shaking episodes. In 2019, the world was stunned when German Chancellor Angela Merkel was caught on camera in a series of unsettling moments. During multiple high-profile public ceremonies, Merkel suddenly began trembling uncontrollably as she stood alongside other world leaders. The shaking was so intense that it was impossible to ignore, and speculation about her health spread like wildfire. One of the most widely circulated clips came from a military ceremony in Berlin, where Merkel stood rigidly with her arms pressed tightly against her body, visibly struggling to contain the tremors. Just weeks later, the same thing happened again during another official event, this time as she stood next to Finland's Prime Minister. Each incident was replayed endlessly on news channels and social media, raising questions that her government scrambled to deflect. Merkel herself downplayed the episodes, insisting that she was fine and that it was nothing more than dehydration or standing too long in the summer heat. Still, for a leader who had built her image on steady, reliable control, the public shaking was a striking contrast. The sight of one of Europe's most powerful figures visibly struggling with her body made headlines around the globe, sparking debates about transparency, leadership, and the vulnerability of politicians under the relentless gaze of the cameras. Though the episodes eventually stopped and Merkel completed her final term, those trembling moments remain etched in memory, a rare glimpse of fragility in a leader who was otherwise known as the Iron Chancellor of modern Europe. Vladimir Putin's plastic surgery and Botox rumors. For years, Vladimir Putin has cultivated an image of strength and control, riding horses shirtless, practicing judo, and projecting the aura of a man untouched by age. But sharp-eyed observers began noticing something strange as time went on. Putin's face itself seemed to be changing. His skin looked unnaturally smooth, his cheeks fuller, and his expression often frozen, sparking endless speculation about whether Russia's leader had turned to Botox, fillers, or even more extensive cosmetic surgery. Photos from different periods show dramatic contrasts. In earlier years, Putin's face carried the normal lines and creases of a man in his 50s. Yet in more recent appearances, his forehead appeared polished and wrinkle-free, his eyes looked puffier, and his jawline strangely tight for someone now in his 70s. Critics joked that he had joined Hollywood's club of Botox enthusiasts, while others suggested more invasive procedures were at play. The Kremlin, of course, has never acknowledged anything of the sort. Still, the rumors grew louder each time Putin appeared on screen looking oddly airbrushed in real life. Some analysts even connected the obsession with youth to politics itself, arguing that in a system built on projecting power, the appearance of aging could be seen as weakness. Whether or not Putin has had cosmetic work may never be confirmed, but the whispers refuse to fade. For a leader who thrives on controlling every detail of his public image, his suspiciously smooth skin might be the one thing he can't stop people from talking about. Kim Jong-un's mysterious health disappearances. Few world leaders generate as much speculation about their health as North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Over the past decade, he has vanished from the public eye multiple times, sometimes for weeks at a stretch, sending the international media into a frenzy of rumors. Was he gravely ill, recovering from secret surgery, or even dead, with officials scrambling to cover it up? Each disappearance turned into a global guessing game. One of the most dramatic cases came in 2020, when Kim dropped entirely out of sight for nearly 3 weeks, even skipping a major national holiday. Satellite images showed his private train parked near a coastal villa, but no one had seen him in person. Some reports claimed he was in a vegetative state after botched heart surgery, while others insisted he had succumbed to illness. Then, just as speculation peaked, Kim suddenly reappeared at a ribbon-cutting ceremony, smiling as if nothing had happened. Adding to the mystery are his dramatic weight fluctuations. At times, Kim has appeared visibly overweight and sluggish, while at other times he's shown up looking slimmer and healthier. Each change has fueled new theories about medical treatments, surgeries, or hidden crises behind North Korea's tightly controlled walls. Because so little is known about the secretive regime, every glimpse of Kim Jong-un is dissected like a clue in a mystery novel. Is he hiding a serious condition? Is the government staging appearances to maintain the illusion of stability? No one outside Pyongyang truly knows. But his vanishing acts and ever-changing appearance remain one of the strangest ongoing political mysteries in the world. Hillary Clinton's fainting incident. In the heat of the 2016 US presidential campaign, Hillary Clinton faced one of the most damaging moments of her political career, and it didn't come from a debate or a speech. On September 11th, during a memorial ceremony in New York City, Clinton suddenly appeared unsteady. Cameras captured her stumbling toward her vehicle, needing assistance from her security detail before nearly collapsing as she was helped inside. The clip spread across the internet within minutes, dominating headlines around the world. Her campaign initially described the episode as a result of overheating, but later revealed that Clinton had been diagnosed with pneumonia days earlier and had kept it quiet. For her opponents, the incident became instant ammunition. They argued that she was hiding serious health problems, that she was too frail to serve, and that the public had been misled. Although Clinton later returned to the campaign trail, the damage was done. The image of her fainting at such a solemn public event lingered in voters' minds and was replayed endlessly on news cycles and social media. For critics, it symbolized weakness. For supporters, it was an unfair invasion into her private health struggles. Looking back, that single moment may have played an outsized role in shaping public perception during one of the most bitterly contested elections in American history. Sometimes in politics, it takes just a few shaky steps caught on camera to alter the course of a campaign. George H.W. Bush vomiting in Japan, one of the most unforgettable and embarrassing moments in modern presidential history, happened in 1992 when George H.W. Bush attended a formal state dinner in Tokyo. Surrounded by dignitaries, cameras, and Japan's Prime Minister Kiichi Miyazawa, the evening seemed like routine diplomacy until disaster struck. Midway through the dinner, Bush suddenly turned pale. Without warning, he slumped forward and vomited directly onto the Prime Minister's lap before collapsing to the floor. Shock rippled through the room as Secret Service agents and medical staff rushed in, while horrified guests looked on. The entire incident was caught on camera and quickly broadcast around the world. The White House later explained that Bush had been suffering from a bout of acute gastroenteritis, essentially a severe stomach flu. But the damage to his image was immediate. The sight of the US president losing control in such a public and humiliating way became late-night comedy fodder, international headlines, and even inspired a Japanese slang phrase, bushiru, meaning to do a bush, vomiting in public. Though Bush recovered quickly, the incident symbolized weakness at a time when his popularity was already sliding, and many historians believe it further hurt his chances in the 1992 election. To this day, it remains one of the most infamous physical mishaps to ever befall a sitting American president, proof that sometimes the smallest human frailty can become a global spectacle. Richard Gere gerbil rumor. Not every strange personal story comes from the world of politics. Some live forever in the shadowy corners of celebrity gossip. One of the most bizarre and persistent rumors in Hollywood history involves actor Richard Gere and the infamous gerbil story. According to the urban legend, Gere had to be rushed to a hospital after a small rodent was allegedly removed from his body. Of course, there has never been a shred of evidence to support this, and medical professionals have debunked it as impossible. Yet somehow, the rumor spread like wildfire in the early 1990s and never completely disappeared. Part of what made it so enduring was the sheer absurdity. It was shocking, salacious, and so strange that people repeated it almost as a joke, without caring whether it was true. Long before social media, it circulated by word of mouth, late-night comedy routines, and tabloids, eventually becoming a staple of celebrity gossip lore. For Gere, it was a nightmare, an ugly rumor he could never fully shake, no matter how many hit movies he starred in or how respected his career became. The Richard Gere gerbil legend is a perfect example of how gossip can take on a life of its own. It doesn't matter that it's baseless. Once a rumor reaches the level of pop culture myth, it can linger for decades. In Gere's case, it became one of the most infamous examples of just how far, and how weird, public fascination with personal rumors can go.